G'day guys, welcome back to the Scooby-Doo Forever channel, and today I've got a bit of a different one for you guys. I'll be discussing what I believe is my favourite Scooby-Doo villain now in The Woodsman from Scooby-Doo Camp Scare. And I'll also be discussing a little bit about the movie, but obviously with a main focus on The Woodsman. And recently became my favourite ever Scooby-Doo villain. I don't think it's going to change. I've been quite obsessed with the movie lately, and it's one of my favourites. It's not my favourite Scooby-Doo movie, Woodsman, he's my favourite Scooby-Doo villain, and these are the reasons why. I guess I do have a lot of nostalgia to this film, as when I first got my hands on the DVD. I don't know exactly when it would have been. Would have been around 2017, 16, I reckon. So obviously 6-7 years after the film came out. When I first got it, excited to watch it. I've actually bought the DVD with me here today. So here it is here. You can see the Woodsman is actually on the DVD. I've had this one for, almost a decade now. So, there's the back of it, just in case you guys were wondering. Absolutely fantastic film. I mean, I was really looking forward to it. I didn't know what I was expecting. For some reason, I don't think I even saw the villain, the Woodsman on the front cover there. I was just so focused on the gang by the fire that I don't think I even recognised the Woodsman on the front cover. But yeah, obviously quite excited to watch a new Scooby-Doo movie. Wasn't really expecting anything, too much. I didn't have any, first opinions on it. I'd never seen anything to do with the film when I first watched it. And, let's just say this was probably the only Scooby-Doo media that actually frightened me when I was a kid. The Woodsman was the scariest villain I grew up with. Yeah, I don't know. I just could not watch any of his scenes when I was a kid. So much so, I even hid this movie. I literally hid it, so I couldn't find it. I reckon it was a good 2 to 3 years later, I finally came back to it. And, boy, I was happy that I did, because I just managed to watch the whole movie. Every single scene where the Woodsman, came out, I was going like this, It's so scary. It is ridiculous how good of a villain he is. Now, obviously, I am so invested with this film that I know heaps and heaps and heaps of other Scooby-Doo fans love this film as well. And that's why I want to discuss a lot about the film, but obviously with a main focus on the Woodsman and explaining why he is my favourite villain. My first point has to be nostalgia. He was actually the only Scooby-Doo villain that actually scared me as a kid. For some reason, I was just never scared of any Scooby-Doo villains, because I don't know. There's just one that never really scared me. There always had to be one, wasn't there? There's always one that scares you as a kid. And for me, mine was the Woodsman. And to be honest, I'm even going to admit, he's still a little bit, scary today. Like, scary is a strong word, I know. By far, in my opinion, the creepiest villain of Scooby-Doo, which is probably why he's my number one as well. I've like I said earlier, I've spoken to heaps of other fans, and they love this movie for different reasons, which is why I'm so happy, for this movie, because they love it for the Fishman, or the other villain in this movie, or one of the main villains, because there was another one, the Spectre of Shadow Canyon, and lots of people said that villain was their, scary villain when they grew up as a kid, similar experiences, but for me, it was the Woodsman. Lots of people have even mentioned that he's like the older brother of the Creeper, the, scarier, creepier older brother. And I don't know, I just love that. When I first watched this movie back, obviously 2-3 years later after it, it was amazing how much he resembles the Creeper in a way. He's not based off the Creeper, I don't think, at all. I don't really know exactly where the Woodsman is based off, but he's based off one of those, 1980s summer camp type scary films. And yeah, I don't like. Let's just say I don't like scary stuff. I do like, spookiness, obviously, but I don't want it to be too spooky. I don't want it to be, unwatchable for me. And as a kid, this one was unwatchable, which is why I hit it, I guess. But yeah, I don't really know where I'm going with this. Let's just say I've got a special story with this film that, really, really, really connected to me now. And yeah. But let's just take a look at the Woodsman design real quick. Got a few pictures up now on the screen. He carries a proper axe, which is, a proper weapon. And he's literally sometimes trying to kill them. I know the main message of the film was a little bit confusing with him wanting, the gang to leave their camp, Little Moose, with the get out signs and, warnings all over the camp. He never actually, there was a pretty dark scene towards the end of the film in the bell tower, of the undersea town, where he, could have probably killed one if, Fred and Luke hadn't stepped in. But yeah, look, there was also a really, really cool scene with Jessica at the bridge where he almost, let's just say, almost killed her. I mean, like, obviously it's a film, a Scooby-Doo film. They're not going to kill anyone in a Scooby-Doo film, are they? But yeah, I don't know what made him so scary. It's just, I guess, his face. I love the legend of, he was a lost hiker. They sent him up a cliff, or they threw him down a cliff or something like that. I don't exactly remember the exact, story. And apparently, like, he hit his face on every single rock falling down the cliff. And, yeah, now the Woodsman is kind of like his ghost, seeking revenge on, the people that, I guess killed him. But yeah, far out. This movie went dark. This is around Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated time, if you didn't realise. 2010 is when the film came out, so literally right at the start of Mystery Incorporated. Season 1 would have been whacking out some episodes by the time this movie came out. And they did incorporate, some music and similar styles of, trying to solve the mystery to Mystery Incorporated. But the thing that stands out the most is how dark they went with this one. It has some dark moments, even as a kid, even as a grown-up. Like, obviously, it's going to stand out when you're a kid, but even as a grown-up, some of the scenes are just fantastic. The Shadow Canyon Spectre had some amazing scene, towards the back end, but almost in the middle of the film. By then, that's 3 villains introduced, or 3, monsters, which could seem a little bit too much, I know. To be honest with you, I almost would have preferred... Now, I don't know exactly about this. I haven't really sorted out my opinion exactly with these 3 villains. Obviously, I want the Woodsman to stay. Far out, yeah, he's definitely staying. I think the Shadow Canyon Spectre, lots of people saying, dedicate another film, or, we want to see a sequel to Camp Scare with the Spectre as the focus, but I kind of feel like the Fishman was the wrong choice for this one. Just what I'm trying to say is, if they wanted to focus on the Fishman, let's just say they created the Fishman before the Woodsman, and they focused on him, he's only in Big Moose Lake, and they're staying at Little Moose Lake, where, or Little Moose, and Little Moose does have a lake, but they didn't go in it. They literally showed up for like half a minute. But yeah, the Woodsman is obviously located in Little Moose. The Fishman's in Big Moose Lake, and the Spectre of Shadow Canyon was where the stolen RV was, and that was, one of the biggest clues of the whole entire mystery, which is, probably explains why there was a villain located there to scare them away. It would be a little bit odd if a Fishman showed up in the middle of a canyon, and even the Woodsman as well, seeming, he belongs in the woods. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of wanted it to be the focus on the Woodsman, because the Woodsman far out. But then again, too much of a good thing can be, bad. The scenes we got with the Woodsman were perfect. If they incorporated even more scenes with the Woodsman, I don't know how they would have gone, or I don't know if they would have made them work. I'm sure they probably would have, because far out, every single scene with the Woodsman is creepy. Very creepy. Yeah. What a villain. Like, how can he not be my favourite at this point? Like, I reckon Pericles probably was my favourite, not that long ago, and he has been my favourite for a few years now. And, there's always been a couple from Be Cool that I've always loved and had, like, nostalgia to love. But, I think the Woodsman simply has to be my number one. The fact that he came out of a movie and not a show of Scooby-Doo, just shows you how amazing this film has to be. Sure, it's got flaws, and that's, okay. I'm not saying, that's a problem. I honestly reckon there's only one perfect Scooby-Doo movie out there, and that's Zombie Island. Camp Scare's probably my second favourite, close behind, but it's not perfect. Like, the plot was really, really good, but a little bit complicated. I never really fully understood it when I was younger. Probably it wasn't until maybe 2021 or something like that where I, fully understood the mystery, the plot, what was going on with the VR and the dynamite used, and even why they had to incorporate 3 villains, and why they didn't just focus on the Woodsman. But yeah, they kind of had to focus. The focus, let's just say, couldn't be on the Woodsman for most of it. Yeah, there was. Now, I was always confused about why, in the final scene with the undersea town where the Woodsman, he shows up there, right, and then he chases the gang, follows Luke, Jessica, and Fred to the bell tower, and I don't know if I don't remember his name. Oh God, I don't remember his name. I don't know if he was there. I'm sure I'll put a picture up of him on the screen, and I'm sure people will be yelling at me for not remembering his name, because he was pretty cool, and a pretty memorable character. All the characters were memorable from this film as well. I don't think I mentioned, but I'm pretty sure. So that was the final scene, and then the Woodsman falls out of the bell tower and then disappears, and then the fishman shows up, and when they unmask the fishman, it's the Woodsman, and when they unmask the Woodsman, it's Ranger Cadoots. And I never really fully understood why he went away and changed into a different costume, because the fishman out of the water was just useless in a way. Sure, he actually kind of looked a little bit more intimidating out of the water, but then again, he sort of didn't. But yeah, wow, you can see the design a lot more clearly of the fishman, and it's so different. Like, it looks like, I'm just going to show you like a picture now of when he's in the water and when he's not. Like, comparing the two, it looks kind of different. Anyway, I kind of felt like the fishman, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with him. I really, really, really like him. He's a really, really, really good villain. There's nothing wrong with him. And he looks really, really cool. Like, he could do some damage. But you can't really base a Scooby-Doo movie fully underwater, can you? You can't base a 70, 80-minute movie underwater of Scooby-Doo. So, yeah, I kind of felt like he should have had a movie just dedicated to him as the solo villain, but then again, sort of not. Yeah, there's a lot going on in this film is what I'm trying to say, and it's hard for it to be perfect, even though I want it to be perfect. I feel like it gets bonus points for just how good the Woodsman is. His design is amazing. I also have to mention another scene with the Woodsman, when they're all having dinner on the first night when they've all arrived. They're having Shaggy's like famous hole in the bowl soup. For some reason, seem to remember quite a lot. The Woodsman's just staring at them through the window. and they don't show his eyes. They literally just show him, with his eyes closed. You can just see his mouth, and you can just see how, like, angry he is. It was just such a fantastic scene. I just have to mention it. It's one of the best scenes in the film. So, so, so dark. Obviously didn't really scare me as a kid, that scene. So I always, like that, because, it didn't scare me. But yeah, now it's just so cool, and it is pretty creepy. Like, he's just there staring at them. No one realised that he was there. Yeah, wow. It was absolutely fantastic. And you could just see his rage on his face, just like, oh my god, these kids are going to be so hard to get out of this place. Like, I might need to step it up a bit. And we're not even introduced to the fisherman or the spectre at this point in the film. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. But yeah, we'll move on now. Okay, so I feel like I've focused on the Woodsman enough now. A little bit more about some of the other characters. Luke was really good. All the kids were good, really. Trudy. And then the twist with Babyface Beretti / Deacon was fantastic. Executed almost to perfection. Yeah, it was very, very, very good. I didn't see it coming as well, which is, even better. It just makes it a little bit more memorable. When you don't see those big twists coming. Jessica was fantastic. Who else did we get in there? All the characters that showed up were really, really memorable, really. Ranger Knudsen was a little bit weak, I know, but yeah. It was quite interesting that he had a crush on Velma. And, he's, plans that, he was working with Babyface Beretti and, he was so focused on that he couldn't focus on Velma. And when he was finally captured, he actually showed a lot more interest to Velma, which I felt was interesting. Yeah, I mean, obviously none of these characters are reoccurring, but yeah, I would have loved to have seen some of these characters reoccurring. Such a memorable movie. I mean, like, everything that the gang do, from zip lining to, going into the Big Moose Lake, and then going on the hunt for the the RV, and then also having that little town that was, like, right near the camps, and the guy that was running that little shop that they went to a couple times was really, really cool as well. He was the one that gave them a pretty big clue of showing the map, what the dynamite was for, to blow the dam, which would let all the water from Big Moose Lake into Little Camp, which would Little Moose camp, and that would obviously destroy it, which is the reason why the Woodsman wanted them out. And I mean, let's just say very, 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 very complicated. I mean, I guess I never really. I mean, when I first watched it, I was like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, that's pretty complicated. Yeah, that's probably a bit too confusing. They've added a little bit too much there, but over the years, I'm not really focusing on that, and for some reason, it just doesn't stand out to me as much now. And I guess me wanting to love this movie even more, I've kind of skipped over some of the confusing parts to, I mean, when I think of this movie, I don't think of the confusing parts. Like, I never really think about it. But sure, I got to admit, it is pretty complicated, the mystery. Too complicated, I have to admit. But yeah, I think the Woodsman, he just blocks it out for me, really. Just the atmosphere as well of this film, like the mystery, everything they do, it's just so entertaining. The spookiness is literally right up here for most of the film. Like, I do admit there is, the middle section where there's basically no villain for quite a long time, where they split up into like the 2 or 3 groups or whatever it was. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that. I mean, that's probably why this film isn't a 10 out of 10 for me. Again, just trying to summarize here with the Fishman. And the Woodsman, is it too much? Probably. I thought the Little Moose, Camp Little Moose and Camp Big Moose, I thought those two, the way they, had the rivalry and they will work together absolutely superbly. And then, with the end, they ended up joining up for Camp Little Big Moose or whatever it was. I thought that was absolutely fantastic as well. And the way they handled that is amazing, creating one big camp. So then you've got all the fancy stuff over here for Big Moose. And then, I like how they only really showed the undersea town and the Little Moose, campfire area in the final end, because the focus on this film has to be Camp Little Moose. Is it better? You have to argue. In my opinion, it probably is better just because it's got the Woodsman, but that doesn't really count, does it? So yeah, I would say that this film shouldn't be for kids under 10, because wow, the experience I had with it was ridiculous when I was a kid. I feel like it should be like, they should, because I've got the DVD right here staring at me. It literally says PG, like scary scenes. Sure, there are some spooky scenes, but like, you almost got to say it's for 12 plus. It just, the Woodsman is just that scary. I can't believe it took them so long as well to create this villain who's based off like, slasher films and, evil psycho films and all that. And the Woodsman is a psycho. He is a guy carrying an axe in the woods. Probably, is he underutilized, the Woodsman? Maybe. But the scenes with him are just so memorable. I feel like I've probably talked enough now about this one. Yeah, let me know if you want to, maybe see me do any more of these film reviews. Like, I could be open to doing like any requested ones. Like, say if someone, for example, requests, I don't know, Franken-Creepy. That's another popular modern Scooby-Doo film. And if you want me to review that or any other movie, you might want me to review Zombie Island. I've always planned to have done that, soon. But I haven't yet, obviously, which is Ghost, Alien Invaders, Cyber Chase, Legend of the Vampire, Pirates Ahoy, Aloha. Just let me know if you want to see them, and I could definitely, plan them out. Also, one of the big things with this film is that literally on the back of the film, I can even prove it, it literally says 70 minutes down here. The film goes for 70 minutes. People literally talk about how long this one felt. I don't know if that's because, it dragged for them through the middle. I know it certainly did a little bit for me, even though, I kind of want to skip over it because, it's not really that relevant. But yeah, this one felt like a long one. I have to admit, they just packed so much into this film. And I have to mention as well, I don't think I've mentioned yet, the music. The opening credit song and then the end credit song, Summertime, Here Comes Summer, they're all fantastic. All the songs in this one are just absolutely fantastic. And what I loved about this one is we got the songs, we got the main song in the middle, or not quite in the middle, but towards maybe a quarter of the way through, when we first got that song, with the gang, they're at Big Moose Lake, right before the fishermen attacked. What I liked about this one is they didn't use the song to incorporate it into a chase scene. I liked, the chase song being about the gang, having fun and, being kids and all that with the chase song. It was just so appropriate for this episode because, this one's, about, camping in the summer. I mean, it was just so appropriate. They utilised that to perfection, in my opinion. And of course, with a memorable monster, of course the Woodsman deserves to be hunting for the treasure. A treasure, Of course the Woodsman's going after the treasure. Like, it's just so good. Like Treasure, like yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but of course they put an absolutely amazing, want for the villain. But yeah, he's doing it for Treasure. Fair enough. But I feel like he could have done it a lot better. But oh well. Yeah, but yeah, obviously, Woodsman is now my favourite Scooby Doo villain. And yeah, I just really, really wanted to get this one out. Almost like an 800 subscriber special as well. It's my first review on something for quite some time. I mean, obviously, I've reviewed episodes. I've never reviewed a movie before, and yeah. Anyway, I'll probably stop yapping now. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this one, and yeah, stay tuned for the next one.